Beautiful. What's up, guys? So today I brought on ATL Sports Zone, as you see, with the Sly hat. I'm not even gonna lie, that's a clean hat. Here to talk about the
Appreciate it.
Hawks today.
Appreciate it. Look
It's
the
a nice.
side. There you
I
go. Lean on
do.
the side. There you go.
Yeah, it's got that City Connect look that you guys had a couple of years ago. It's a nice look.
Thank you. Appreciate that.
But go ahead, man. Introduce yourself to the audience. Let them know who you are, what you do.
Definitely. So ATL Sports Zone, Jaye. ATL Sports Zone is my channel. I pretty much break down everything Atlanta sports, mainly focusing on Atlanta Hawks, the good, the bad, and the ugly. Hopefully, we can see a lot of good going forward. But just quick synopsis, quick analysis, something easy you can turn on really quick, learn, get some information. I've been following the Hawks for about several years now. Almost too long to count. Love the sport, love the team. Hopefully, we can get some more wins this year. But yeah, that's a little bit about me.
Yeah. So I guess you automatically help me out here. So the first question: what is a successful season for this team?
Yeah, I think to be completely honest, I think playoffs, but not in the play-in spot. So succeed.
Mm,
I think that would be successful in my eyes. I think we are and we will be a little bit better because we have some defined roles going into this season. I know we got rid of DeJounte Murray, brought in Zacharie Risacher, brought in Dyson Daniels. So we have more of a defined role. We have more of a defensive team. But I think going forward, ultimately, to just really evaluate this team, I think the sixth seed making the playoffs without having to do a play-in game is probably successful for me. And I think a lot of other Atlanta Hawks fans would agree with me on that one.
that's the big hope. That's the
Yep,
the dream scenario.
exactly.
And I guess that's a follow. How realistic do you think that is for you guys this year?
I think it's pretty realistic. You see, I didn't go out and say, we're going to be the best team in the East
No, no,
and
yeah,
say
yeah, yeah.
top four. I think if we can, like I said, Mel, wow, just like gel and mesh at the same time, I think it would be really, really good. I think if we rely on Trae, which a lot of people don't really like doing, but I don't mind it. I mean, Trae's an all-star level player to me every year. I mean, he's a 20 plus, 10 plus kind of guy every year.
Yeah.
I think if we rely on him, let him be special, and then allow some other guys to be defensive specialists, I think we'll go a lot further. So realistically, I think we'll be the sixth seed. Last year we were at the
Mm,
ninth seed, and we had a bunch of injuries, and we
yeah,
weren't
boss. I think
great.
so. I think you guys
Yeah,
did two play-in games again.
yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, which I mean, for me, I could see you guys. I would probably have you in the play-in again, to be 100% honest.
yeah,
But I think if things like really clicked and clicked early, and if you get the Bogdanovich that was in the Olympics,
yeah. hundred
you
percent.
you guys for sure, I could see you guys at like 7, 8, um, pretty easily, if at all. Again, assuming everything works out, God forbid, no injuries or
Definitely.
whatnot. But there's an interesting question, so I wanted to ask you. So obviously, going into the draft, the Hawks had the big talks about Alex R or Risacher.
Yes.
Now, obviously, you had the I'm not gonna lie, it was a very odd reports at the time about like Alex R doesn't want to go there, they
Yeah,
don't want him there.
yeah,
It was just like a whole like nobody wants nothing to do with it.
definitely.
Do you though agree with Atlanta's decision to not take Alex R, who for a lot of people, for better or for worse, whether you agree, I guess is a different story, but a lot of people thought was probably the best player in the draft, or one of,
Yeah.
and passing that up. Do you agree with that decision, or are you one of those like at some point? I get it, you might not like it here, but we got to take the best available talent to us and our scouts and proceed that way.
Yeah, I think Alex Sark going forward probably be one of the better individuals in this class. I know he's had a terrible summer league showcase.
Mm,
And there's people kind of down on him. I think he would be a really good player. I kind of compare him to Evan Mobley. Just style and skill set. And I think he will be that player. But I think for Atlanta, I think that they went with the right route, in my opinion. If they're looking at this team, they're trying to build this team. There was one glaring spot, one glaring issue, and that was tall wings. To the fact that they wanted to go get Brandon Ingram, and I honestly think they just got a cheaper version of Brandon Ingram, to be completely honest. And I think that's what they wanted and what they needed. And should they have Galen Alex Sarr? I like Alex Sarr as a player, but for fit wise, I think he would have prevented Onyeka Okongwu from being the player he wants to
mm,
be. Because one of
okay.
those have to play. One of those have to play. And if you want to involve Onyeka, you got to make sure he shoots more. And I think going forward, you can't have both of those players on the court at the same time because you're taking not only reps, but you're taking shots from one another.
I get you.
So I think for the most part, I think the Atlanta Hawks made a better fit play. Now we can look 10 years now later and
Right.
see if that's the best play, but for fit wise, I think that was the best move.
No, yeah. I think that I'll agree with you on that right off the bat. I think that's unfortunately not even like just for you, but it could be one of those nasty in retrospect things of why didn't you take Alex R? Even though in the heat of the moment, there are a lot of people who didn't even know if he
Exactly.
deserved to be number one or was the best
Exactly.
player of the draft. Or
Exactly.
so I agree with you there. I'll put the stamp on it. If people go back and go, oh, Alex R should have been, man, at that moment though,
Exactly.
no one was saying
Exactly.
that, bro.
Exactly.
No one was
I
saying
will
that.
say this: the comp that I look for the Atlanta Hawks to be is I look for them to be similar to like the Indiana Pacers last year. I think
Mm,
that's a very realistic team that they can be. I mean, they're a few injuries away from. I'm not saying they're going to make it the Eastern Conference Finals, but if they build a team like the Pacers kind of built that team, running with Halliburton at the point and then just building around him, I think they're kind of similar to that. And so I think if they could mesh and gel at the same time, like the Pacers did, I think we'll be good going forward.
and you talked about something else. So the DeJounte Murray trade happened. Now I'm gonna be
Yeah,
honest. I was
definitely,
at a party for my sister's friend, so I
definitely,
was there. I
definitely.
go on my phone.
Yeah,
My buddy
yeah,
goes, DeJounte got traded. I was like,
yeah,
what?
yeah,
Already? Because it was one of those
definitely.
things. I was like, you
Yeah,
know how it is with DeJounte. Every
yeah,
other year, he's supposedly gonna get traded, never
definitely.
does.
Exactly.
He's playing. So in the
Yeah.
back of my head, I'm like, yeah, it's not gonna happen. It is what it is.
Exactly.
And then, so what did you think about that return for DeJounte Murray?
Yeah. At first, I'm not gonna lie, I was pretty confused. I thought every report we've been reading, every person on Twitter, X, whatever you call it, has said, "Hey, they're gonna make a deal. They're gonna include Brandon Ingram." And when I looked, I got that message. I was actually on the beach. I got that message like on ESPN. I was thinking like, okay, where's Ingram? Where's Ingram? Where's Ingram? Oh, we just got two first rounders, Dyson Daniels, Larry Nance. We're missing Ingram. And so when I first saw it, I was kind of frustrated to be completely honest. But the more I kind of backed into it, it's maybe just me being partial because I'm an Atlanta Hawks fan. If you really think about the return they got for DeJounte Murray, it's pretty much what they put into him, I think.
Hmm.
With they gave up what, three first rounders? What, they get two first rounders back, and then they got Dyson Daniels, who a lot of people say that's a first round talent, first round grade. And then you got Larry Nance. I think it will go down as being one of the more undervalued trades because people just don't like it initially. But I
Right.
think as teams continue to move forward and the second apron teams got to get cheaper and cheaper, it's going to be a better long-term play than a lot of people think.
I can see that. I for sure can see that. I agree with you though. That initial return, I glanced at it a little bit. I did like that you got two first for him. So I was like, okay, that's
Exactly.
good. I was
Exactly.
at least happy on the compensation pick wise. I was like, okay, at least you got a little bit recouped from
Yeah.
what you gave up for him. But then I was like, okay, Dyson Daniels, I think is cool. But then now you see, now that's before this is a different question I have for you, but I don't want to get into that quite yet. But when you
Okay.
got Larry Nance, I was like, okay. Now I think now remind me, was this after or before you guys drafted Risacher? Was it before the draft or I think it was after, right?
It was after. It was after. So
So at that point, I'm like, okay, you guys had like AJ Griffin, you
exactly.
had
Exactly.
Jalen Johnson, you got
Yep.
Risacher,
Yep.
you still have, guys like a Kong with,
Yep.
if
Exactly.
Snyder wanted to get weird, run him at F4. So I was like, man,
Yep.
this wing position seems like weirdly log, jet,
Yeah.
like
Exactly.
jammed, like,
Exactly.
and
Exactly.
now you're getting Larry Nance. I was like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Like I at least understand Dyson Daniels a little bit. Like you're making up a guard comp guy
Right.
who doesn't need the ball. Like that's not his game.
Exactly.
Defensive, basically, like it's a worse, but like it's the similar idea of when they got to Jonte of what they thought it was going to
Exactly. Yep.
be. So I was like, okay. And then this is my question too. So AJ Griffin,
Yeah.
I was bamboozled,
I know.
shocked.
I know.
I'd actually made a video about AJ Griffin last
Yeah.
year. I
Yep.
talked about players that I thought could have been like a guy that took it to the next level. Now I'll give it this: the comment section was on me, bro. They told me it was Jalen Johnson. They were
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, man, you
Yeah.
just let him go for
I
nothing. What
know. I know.
happened?
I know. I'm pretty frustrated with that one, to be completely honest. I mean, you look at the current roster now. So take out the guys that you invested in, take out Dyson Daniels. Look at the back end of the roster. You got like
Mm.
Garrison Matthews, who may be on the team. You got I'm trying to think. But essentially, you got a lot of players. But I felt that AJ Griffin he just was underutilized a lot. And I heard Landry Fields basically said they had to make a tough decision. They had to get rid of players. And for him for a second, I just feel like that's just weak in my opinion. I feel like he is way more valuable than a second. And when he
Mm.
had like played, I mean, he produced, and I just think
Last
his
year, yeah,
relationship with Snyder, Quinn Snyder, I don't think was positive. I don't know why, because he seems like everyone I've heard, everyone I talked to him about him, he's been a first guy in, work hard, kind of guy. So that one today is probably the more confusing moves in the offseason that I've seen from the Atlanta Hawks. I really just don't get it.
I
Um,
agree.
and yeah, and I'm just, I just don't really agree with that move, to
No,
be honest.
I'm with you there because now last year was he hurt? That was the other thing I was going to ask you because I'm looking
Yeah.
here. He only played 20 games. So did he have
No,
some
he
like?
wasn't hurt. I think they just didn't play him. And then he did get hurt for a few games, but I just didn't think he vibed with the coach, to be completely honest.
Okay, because I'm like, man, like because again, I talked about him his first season. I thought he was looking like something. I don't think he was going to be anything insane, but I thought he was
No,
going to be
yeah,
a great rotational guy for
exactly.
this team. And I was
Definitely.
like, man, especially off your bench when you're getting like 9, 10 points in less than 20 minutes, right? You're getting 47
Exactly.
from the field, 39 from 3-on-4 a game. I'm like, oh, that's good.
No,
Like, I
it
mean,
was a baller, I think, a baller off the bench, and I think that it goes back to another point. I think another issue for the Hawks is they kind of have too many pretty good players, and I
mm,
think going forward we need to basically figure out, okay, who are the guys we're going to build around? Who are our guys? Let's
right,
find other players for different roles, because if you look down this roster, I mean, you got three, four, five pretty good wings who could be starters on other
right,
teams. But you got them all on the same roster. You only can play a certain amount of people, a certain amount of minutes. And
right.
so that's what I think for the next progression for the Hawks. Who are they going to hone in on and basically build around?
Yeah, I agree with you there. But speaking of that, I gotta ask. So obviously, you've already sort of touched on it.
Yeah,
Is Trae Young your franchise? Like,
yeah,
obviously, I know he's getting paid as that. But I
yeah,
talked about this in other interviews. Like sometimes, for better or for worse, sometimes you have to pay a guy
yeah.
in a role or a way because, especially if you're a small market team, there's only so much you can do.
Right.
Right? Obviously, Atlanta's not a small market, but you get my point.
Yeah, definitely.
You only have so much flexibility there in terms of like, oh, it's not like the Lakers where we could just go and get AD and we
Yeah,
could get
yeah,
Russ if we wanted to, and we're gonna get rumors for Beal and anyone and they mama that's up for a trade. Like
yeah.
we're gonna get in there. Is he a franchise guy to you, or are the Hawks looking side eye, sort of like, hey Trey, if you really hoop,
Yeah,
right package might come along, brother, and
yeah.
it's been
I know.
great.
I know. I know.
How do you feel about it? Like, should they be doing that, or should they be like, hey, bro, let's try and help you out and try to capitalize on this era
Yeah.
while we have it?
I'm one of the few that are I'm a big Trae Young fan.
Mm,
I think he's a baller. I really do. I mean, you got to think in the East, he has to be what, top 3 point guard in the East, top 4 point guard in the East. And I just am afraid of, if you get rid of Trae
mm.
and you don't get anybody back, how good will you be as a team? I know you be the issue that I kind of run into is the previous Hawks teams where you had Jeff Teague, you had Kyle Korver, you had Paul Millsap. The team was
Right,
good, but when you needed a star to make a bucket at the end of the game, you didn't, and you get bounced the first round. And
right.
so I just think going forward, you do need stars on teams. And Trae Young, he'll probably go down as one of the greatest Hawks point guard, if not player, in history, just because of the records he's built. I think he's top 1 or 2 in assists already.
I'm sure.
I think, for me, if you have a talented all-star level player on your team already,
Mm,
try not to mess it up, in my opinion. Now, I know that's a lot of people are going to say, "Well, he's small,
yeah,
bad attitude," and I agree. I agree. For me, if you have an all-star on your team, don't get rid of him, in my opinion.
that's fair. I mean, I'm gonna be honest. I'm not the highest on Trey Young. Now, I'm not. I'm gonna be honest. For me personally, I don't care about mentioning guy's attitude, this or that. I don't really
Right, right,
because my issue with that is, especially as an outsider, like I don't have any.
right.
I feel that would be for me, I guess, as someone who covers the NBA, that would be disingenuous for me to try and come out and act as if I know these players. I've talked to these players. Or I've at least talked to someone in the locker room. Forget the
Mhm.
player.
Yeah.
I haven't done that. So I can't sit there and be like, oh man, Trae Young, man, this attitude is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, at times you'd be like, hey, bro, let's chill on,
Oh,
woe is me with it. Sure.
definitely.
But I'm not going to sit there and go, oh, this guy's got that attitude. I just think my one thing for me, I remember distinctly, I think at times it's funny because as great as Trae is as a passer and a playmaker, I think the issue at times is so much of that playmaking is predicated off of his scoring. When
Yeah.
he then gets to the playoff setting where teams are able to trap him more and take advantage of him, the playmaking feels far more limited. And
Definitely.
then at that point, too, for better or for worse, he has his method of playmaking, which is a lot of the pick and roll action, getting those guys cuts, driving kick sort of scenarios. But the issue is that all these teams sort of know how they want to run it. So it's
Yeah.
so much easier to mitigate with him. That's sort of been my issue with him. Now,
Definitely.
obviously, the size is a factor for sure.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not the first thing I try and run to. I think it's lazy to do that.
Mhm.
Um,
But
but I
no,
was going to go ahead.
no, I agree. I think Trae Young. There's a lot of people that don't like him. I would just say I would rather have Trae Young than be in like all-star star player purgatory. Like we see the Pistons right now. Who
Right.
knows what they're doing? They're looking. They've drafted top 5, top 10 in the last 3 or 4 drafts.
In a row. Yeah.
Still looking for an all-star. Cade Cunningham is lost up there, and I just think
Right. I guess my one thing for you though, the difference to me there is though, Cade being hurt as much as he is, and in those situations, I think, and I talked about this before, and I've even talked about it on like Discord with my buddies. I think the Pistons at times have drafted as if Cade can't work out,
yeah,
like if he keeps getting hurt, if the play doesn't tune up, we need to draft in case it doesn't work. Versus let's draft because we have Cade and play around Cade versus there's an upside talent here that could be even better than Cade in case Cade, for unfortunate luck, whatever, falls out.
yeah,
I don't think you guys have had that. Thankfully, like you guys have sort of built with the idea that you at least you have Trae, and if you don't, like, and I guess this is a segue. So let's say you got rid of Trae Young for
yeah,
whatever it is, right? Like let's
mhm,
say I don't know, you got Dyson Daniels as your
yeah,
young point guard, which is going to be interesting to say the least, and
right.
then still have Kobe Buffkin. You kept Jalen Johnson. Is Jalen Johnson at that point the franchise guy for now? Obviously, like would he be the piece that the Hawks are like, let's get it?
I think he has to be. I mean, I see him taking a big jump this year.
Mm-hmm.
To be completely honest, I don't see a huge like. I know everyone says he's going to be like a 26, and I don't see that. I think
Right.
he's going to take a jump though, and I think he's going to be a really good player. To be completely honest,
Yeah,
and if he's needed to be that guy, which if they get rid of Trey, then he
he
obviously
has to
will
be
be
right.
that guy. I think he will answer the test. But next year, since they have Trey, I don't think he has to be that 26, 28,
No, yeah,
all-star level player. But I think he has the tangibles to
interesting.
be that guy.
Interesting. Because for me, I think at his best, like honestly, I think he could be one of the best twos in the league. Not like
Yeah,
shooting guard, but like a best number two guy. I don't know if I see like the guy. Now, obviously, I don't know, right? I mean, the
right.
dude went from 6 points to 16 in a year,
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah,
I'm a Bulls fan. Kobe White went from a guy that I was very low on because all I'd seen of him, it was like, it was
yeah,
like
yeah,
flashes in the pan, but you never
yeah,
got nothing.
yeah.
Now I got a sustained season, maybe.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm willing to be wrong on that. I do like him a lot for you. I hope my only hope or concern is that I just hope that it's sort of like what you talked about if you had drafted Alex Sarr with a Conwu. My
Yeah,
one concern is that Risacher's development does that then impede
right.
Jalen Johnson's and vice versa? Because if you're Jalen Johnson, right, you're getting. I'm just looking at it now. You had 13 shots a game last year,
Hmm.
right? You're playing 34 minutes. I think the minutes will stay the same. Like
Right.
he's a starter for you guys at this point.
Yeah,
But it's like, do the 13 shots stay? Do they go down? How much
right.
does Ricochet take up? How much at that point, right? You still have Dyson Daniels. Does Bogdanovich out of the Olympics and, the coaching staff and stuff go, let's bring in Bogey more as an offensive
Right.
guy to keep going. that's my one concern now is that your wing room is a little bit sort of like, are they going to be at odds? Do you think there's a chance of that? Or do you think Snyder's going to be good enough to sort of divvy it out, figure it out?
No, 100%. We kind of talked about it a little earlier. I personally think the Atlanta Hawks have too many good, decent to good players. I mean, you talk about Risacher. We didn't even talk about DeAndre Hunter. I mean, he's a
Right.
18 and 20 point guy. So I do think that will be an issue going forward. I mean, there's simply not enough minutes and not enough shots for everyone. To combat this, I would like to see the Hawks make one more, I wouldn't say big move, but make a move where they get off of one more of their wings and one of their centers. That those are two positions that were loaded heavily. We're a little light on like point guard and two guard. I know Dyson Daniels can play a little bit of two, but true shooting
Right.
guard, not light on. And so I 100% think it'll be an issue without
Yeah.
saying it. Like it's going to stunt not only Jalen Johnson's growth, probably going to stunt Risha's growth, and we need to figure out ways.
So
I,
work around it.
exactly.
No, I agree. And I was going to ask you this too. Why haven't you guys thought about, because of all the names in the Hawks, right? Even when DeJounte Murray was a name, the one thing that sort of tripped me up a little bit was why was DeAndre Hunter never the name that was brought up in trade? Just because I don't think he's, like you said, not a bad player by any means.
Right.
But it seems like you sort of know what he is at this point, right? Like
Right. Exactly.
consistent 14 to 15 point a game guy, gives you solid defense night in, night out. Not
Right.
quite as great as what everyone thought coming in.
Yeah.
He had, or no, that was Cam Reddish. I was about to say he had the unfortunate Paul George comparison that every wing that plays even the slightest amount of defense gets now.
Yeah.
But I'm like, okay, but why? That was where I got confused too, because again, even before that, you had Jalen Johnson, AJ, and I mean, let me look real quick, but I mean, this coming year, he'll be turning 27.
Yeah.
So at that point, it's like, I don't know, I don't remember what you guys paid him, or what
Yeah.
your contract with him looks like, but
Yeah.
I'm sitting here and I'm like, should he still be on this team? Like, I don't know. Like, I feel like out of all the names that they were talking about, I understand why you wanted to move off DeJounte, right? Because you did so much for him and you hope to get back return. But I'm like, man, if like maybe a couple of years ago you guys moved off DeAndre Hunter, maybe you could have gotten some return there.
I
Is
know.
that the name that you think if the Hawks tried to do another move, like you said, should DeAndre Hunter sort of be the central name, barring like obviously they just go de facto, like we want to go for Cooper Flag and we're trading Trae Young and we're blowing the whole thing up. Should
Yeah.
DeAndre Hunter be that centerpiece of the trade? Like we are moving him. What can you give us?
I think so. 100%. I think
Mm,
that should be the guy. It should be him and one of the centers. So if it's Larry, well, if you consider Larry Nance the center, him or Capello or Zeller, it needs to be the combination of those two. The reason why I don't think they've traded him to this point is because they're kind of fascinated by his potential.
mm,
I haven't been always big on his potential, but I mean they love he's a 6'8" guy. Sometimes can
yeah.
get 20 plus points a game in a defensive stopper apparently. I haven't been that big on DeAndre Hunter to be completely honest. I've thought,
Mm,
he mentally doesn't like taking over games. He doesn't like to be that guy that we needed to get a shot from. He
right.
doesn't like to take a step up. But in regards to trade, yes, I think he should be the number one guy in a trade. I think it comes down to okay, who can you think to trade? Who can you look to trade him to? I think there's only really two teams that has to be interested. Number one, like a contender team who kind of want a big wing player to
Mm,
contend next year, or really a not good team who needs talent. So I go back to that Detroit team who
right.
they say they're drafting, but I mean, I bet DeAndre Hunter on that team will give them a
It would
step
help a
up.
lot.
Give them additional 5 or 10 games, in my opinion.
Yeah.
So
I
it's
think I think if there's any team you guys should try to trade him for, to be honest, if I'm looking at it, I would try to see what the Thunder want.
yeah,
Because I think for them, especially, like I still don't like their wing depth. Like I love what they did with getting Hartenstein to actually have a
right,
real big now. But
right,
once you sit him or Chet, that backup
yeah,
wing is looking bad. And I love J Dub, but he should not be playing the
yeah,
four and
exactly,
on any team in the league.
yeah,
So maybe you could get him for like a first or
yeah,
like,
yeah,
however many. Like I forgot this dude was a fourth overall pick. Like this
yeah,
was
yeah,
a
yeah,
hot.
no, yeah. They and I think it comes down to I recently think the Hawks have changed their strategy. I mean, last year we had DeJounte Murray. We wanted to be a offensive first team. I think I think we were top 5, top 10 in offense last year, top 5 maybe in offense last year in
Mm.
regards to points scored, 3 points shots made. And I think recently there's been a big shift in like, okay, we're gonna back this up. We're gonna go defensively. We're gonna go, big wings to surround Trae. And I think DeAndre Hunter kind of got lost in the shuffle. He was a guy that they kind of relied on defensively when they had that offensive momentum. But when you bring in Dyson Daniels, Zacharie Risacher, even Larry Nance, you're bringing in big 6'7", 6'8" wings. I mean, you tend to lose DeAndre Hunter. So I think because of that shift now in strategy, I think they may look to move him honestly at the beginning of the season, beginning to before the trade deadline. And I think there will be some potential suitors. It just depends on what they can get back and how good
Yeah.
they are. Now, if he's playing and they're rolling
Yeah,
and
they're not going to want to
everything
mess with it.
good,
Yeah.
yeah, then they're not messing with it. But if they're kind of, with that play-in team, maybe that 8th or ninth spot, I would look to potentially see him being traded so they can get Risacher some minutes.
Yeah, I agree. And then I guess you could do this as a double headed question or just tackle it one at a time. It is Quinn Snyder the coach that should be here for the Hawks? Like, even if they're doing a rebuild, whatever you would say that they're doing now, like, is he the right guy for that? And we already started with the question of what's a successful season.
Yeah.
So, what would be a disappointment of a season for you guys? Like, what would lead to that? But you can tackle those one at a time.
Yeah, definitely. Is Quinn Snyder the answer? I think he works. I think I'm not going to say he shouldn't be here, but if you go back to the whole like interviewing process, they only interviewed him and then he basically came in at the tail end of last season. I think they could have done more due diligence to make sure he was the guy. Now, I think Quinn Snyder is a genius. I think he's a phenomenal player, developer. And if the way they're going with young, defensive, athletic wings, I think he's a good coach for that. And I also think he'll bring the best out of Jalen Johnson. I think he'll bring the best out of Zacharie Risacher. But in my only concern is I wish would have done the whole process. We want to make sure, um, uh Email Doka was out there at the time. I'm not saying, he was the coach or he was the guy, but I wish we would have maybe taken some
Right.
time
No,
to
I get
meet
your point,
him.
though.
And so is he the coach now? Sure. I think he's a good coach. I think he's a very brilliant offensive minded genius in regards to getting people open, getting people the ball. It may change in 3 years from now. I just don't really I'm not really that confident in him, but I
Mm-hmm.
know that he's here now and I'm accepting of
You're
him.
good with it. Okay.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, because some even the middling teams feel like sometimes like their coach
Exactly.
is either a huge thing that they love and like they can help set the culture. And even if we get worse or if we get better, they can weather the storm with us. Now, are they a coach for the championship? Maybe not. But every
Definitely.
team needs a Mark Jackson, maybe before Steve Kerr or vice versa.
Exactly. Exactly. Yeah,
Um,
I think he's a good coach. Now, in regards to what's a unsuccessful season, I think to be completely honest, if we don't make the play, if we're not in a playoff position, or if we're not in that playoff play-in team, I think that's a non-successful team, a non-successful season. I think we are a lot better on paper. Like I said, we have a lot of good players who could be starters on a lot of teams in the league. And on paper, if we don't get, I'm just saying maybe that ninth spot minimum. I think
yeah, I can see that.
it's an issue, and I think we need to go back to the drawing board. I'm telling you, I'll tell you this right now: if we don't get the nice spot, Trae Young will be traded this year. I think they'll just say, you know what, it's not worth it. We'll just start this thing all the way over. We already
I
kind
would
of
agree.
hooked up with Risha. We got a young, talented big man in Onyeka Okongwu, and we got Jalen Johnson. We maybe can get lucky and get a top 5 pick, depending on what the Lakers do. But we just need to start over. And so if they go ninth position or less, I think it's an unsuccessful
I
season.
agree. I can agree with that. I think if they don't make the play and if they're not confidently in the play in bare minimum, if they're not like, okay, we're the 7th seed, we're pretty good. Like 6
Yeah,
seed might be a little crazy,
yeah,
one Nick to Trey here or one
yeah,
thing to Halliburton there,
exactly.
whatever. We're out of it. Okay, we can kind of keep it going. We can maybe hopefully continue to develop. I'm with you. I think if this team's struggling to make the play in,
Yeah,
I just think it's what they should do at that
yeah,
point. I'm just being honest.
exactly.
I don't even think it's what they like. Oh, what I think. I think that's what they should do because that's
Yeah,
just like I don't know if that's a detriment on Trae or the team or whatever you want to
Yeah,
say, but
it'd
at
be
that
tough. I don't
point,
want to think about it, but I think
yeah,
I think that'll be Trey. I think he'll have to be the scapegoat at that point, whether
yeah.
it's wrong or different. I mean, that's his team. He's the best player on the team, and they've been in the play-in 3 years in a row. So it will have to go to him, and
Yeah.
hopefully they can get some kind of value for him at that point. But
I'm sure you
yeah,
can.
yeah,
I just think he's too good to not get some form of value from him.
definitely.
So Jay, we're about to wrap up here, but I wanted to again thank you. If there's anything you want to tell the viewers before you go ahead and give your little parting
Yeah,
words.
definitely. So I just want to plug my channel. So follow me, ATL Sports Zone on YouTube. Like I said, we do quick videos. I don't, like to waste people's time, but quick videos that kind of just highlight what's going on in the world of Atlanta sports. And if you want to come check us out, we're also on Twitter or X at ATL Sports Zone, as well as Instagram. So just check any three of those out, ATL Sports Zone, and you'll find me.
Yeah.
Also want to thank you, Michael, for taking the time. I know it was a good conversation. And
No,
I
of
appreciate
course.
you for having me on. I know you've been doing this, but I appreciate you for interviewing me and talking about the Atlanta
Oh,
Hawks.
I mean, that's what it's all about, man. I just want to show that this community, because again, I think at times we get so closed off when we try so hard to just be like for the self and like I can't. I just want to show the idea that if we all collaborated, I think we would all see mutual growth, and I think that would only help the community. Versus, I just think it would make a better world of fandom in basketball. So again, it means a lot to me that you do this to give me your time for anybody who does this. So again, just thank you, man. It was an honor to have you on. I hope you have a great rest of your day.